Let's get it started. Let's get it started in here. Let's get it started. Let's get it started in here. Yeah.
The views expressed by J. Michael McCoy are the views of the hosts and guests of Max World Live, and not necessarily the views of Webcast One Live, its staff, its management, the cleaning crew, Dave the electric guy, the guy who cleans the skywalk, the woman who brought in the cookies, the management staff of Hubble Real Estate, the parking lot attendant at Keck Parking, the wait staff over at Miss Kitty's, the coffee crew at Frederick's, the man in the street corner willing to work for food, Rob Spearman, Max Crabb, or anyone else of sound mind. Should you be offended, provoked, intimidated, shocked, confused, or just made to think independently, log on to maxworldlive.com right now. It's your voice we want to hear in Max World. And now, live from the palatial studios of Webcast One Live, your host, J. Michael McCoy.
Thank you, Michael Libby. 4 minutes after the hour on this third day of June in the Lord's year 2014. And should you be listening to this in a podcast sometime after June 3rd, understand that what we talk about today is going to be different tomorrow. Today is a special edition of our program. I've got a Steve Riker in here with me, which is a former medic with the United States Army and a passionate lover of Jesus. I have, of course, the star of the show, Tom Coates, in here, and we're being produced by Ryan. And this is Election Day, Primary Day, 2014, so that we're going to talk about that. We don't know who the winners are, so if you listen to this tomorrow, we're going to sound real stupid. All you had to do was watch Channel 8. They would have told you. I understand that. But today we're also going to vent. And I tell you this up front because sometimes when you listen to people venting, it's a little uncomfortable. It's not that slick, smooth radio that you're used to. It's a little more opinionated. It's a little more touchy, close to the bone. But Steve is an ex-military guy. Tom and I, as you know, are incredible patriots. This thing with this prisoner swap that the president did, in my opinion, is over the top. I mean, Benghazi's second. It really drives me crazy. The NSA thing, I think the president got his hand caught in the cookie jar because I think they've been doing this for years. I mean, ever since cell phones hit the market. I mean, you understand why we have cell phones, right? You think it's so I can call Tom in the middle of the day and say, "Hey, Tommy, how you doing?" And he's out in the middle of the golf course going, "Hey, I'm pretty good." No, it's so they can track us. Now, when they were analog, they couldn't do that. But now that they're digital, they know exactly where you are when the battery is in your phone. And some phones even have a teeny little battery that you don't know about, that even when you take out the battery, it'll send a ping to the people who want to know where you are. I love Steve Deace's line. You're going to be made to care. They're going to make you care about this incredible intrusion into our privacy. Nothing compares to what the president just did in this prisoner swap. So I'm going to ask your forgiveness, a little grace up front today, okay? Because you're going to get some guys that are pretty passionate about Jesus and this country saying some things that you may not appreciate about President Barack Obama. So, Steve, welcome.
Hi, Mac. How are you? Good.
Nice to have you here. Tom, welcome.
Good day, Mac.
Did you sit in your backyard and shoot any prairie wolves last night and call them Barack Obama?
I should have. It might have released some steam after what I've been hearing.
This is unbelievable.
Yeah.
And the story seems to be changing. I have not seen the news today, but I know as of last night they had several people from his platoon.
His unit.
Yep. Okay, we got an Army guy here. From his unit who said that he walked away. He said he was tired of the military. He didn't agree with America's position. And some of them even thought he had voiced he was going to go join the Taliban. Then I heard they have a letter.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. All right. So Steve's going to kind of catch us up on all this.
So this is a guy who sent out a letter and said he was disgusted with America. He didn't want any part of being American. He sent his personal goods home in the middle of a tour. Nobody's ever done that I know of. He packed it all up, boxed it all up, shipped it home. He leaves behind his rifle and his sensitive gear, so at least he did that. And then he takes off in the middle of the night with nothing but a bottle of water and his knife and his camera.
Yep.
Didn't even take his personal papers, possessions, anything like that. No ID.
And he didn't do that, I am speculating, because he knew that someone would be there to take care of him. You don't walk off in a country like Afghanistan not being armed unless you are walking into the protection of someone else.
Yeah. And I've heard, and again, you'll give us the details later, but I've heard in the 90 days that followed his, what they thought was missing or kidnapped, some Americans died trying to find him.
Yeah, 6 of them, Mac.
Six of them.
As they struggled to find this guy, they said 6 better Americans died. Steve, I'd heard that this guy would lay awake at night in his bunk studying whatever the local language is there, and I don't know the name of it, but Rosetta Stone was being studied by him.
That's right.
A liberal friend of mine claimed that he was trying to walk to India. Well, I said, what inspiration would he have to study that much time in the local language if he was going to pass through to India?
That
makes no sense
I've heard
to me.
that too, and I think that's complete hogwash. Nothing I can see in this guy's actions would make me think that that's what he had intended.
And apparently the acorn didn't fall too far from the tree. Now, we all saw pictures of the father, an odd-looking duck, to be kind.
Sure.
Apparently shares somewhat similar anti-American views.
Well, and what was our president thinking, having him stand right next to him in the Rose Garden making comments?
Who knows what this guy thinks anytime, but I understand the father wanted to join the French Foreign Legion when he was 18. This was a fellow that did not particularly care much for the country, and the son apparently didn't fall too far from that tree.
Correct, absolutely. What we ended up with was a bad man who brokered a deal to get back a bad man by releasing 5 bad men.
And these 5 guys,
complete
Steve, you've studied this. I understand today that these 5 Taliban, the worst of the worst, were handpicked by the Taliban.
That's right.
To be released. A couple of generals. One of them was Osama bin Laden's close confidant that perhaps planned out the 9/11 murders. We're talking about people that are not probably, but in all definite percentages going to return to the battlefield. If they're kept in Qatar for a year, that'd be a surprise.
Right.
But even if they are, Biden and the spokesman Carney, who's on his way out, says that the risk from these guys has been mitigated. How are you mitigating the risk of these kind? These aren't just kids that stumbled in and were taken into the Taliban. These were masterminds. One guy's a war criminal that apparently was responsible for the deaths of thousands of innocents, and he should have been hung already.
That's right.
And instead he's being released. I agree with you, Mac. I've got, and you got, a long list of scandals and outrages from Obama. It's a new one, and the irony is they're not satisfied with letting a number of scandals sit. They want more.
Yeah. Well, a friend of mine said that Obama did this to take the heat off of the VA situation in Benghazi.
And his emissions proclamation that just came out too.
What's that?
About carbon emissions. That's going to be
of course, that's unfortunately, Steve, been coming. Now, I will say just briefly on this carbon emissions thing that is designed eventually to put the coal companies out of business, which, by the way, is still the largest single generator of electricity in this country. You put them out of business, and all of our electricity bills are going to go sky high. The chamber estimates 10,000 jobs will be lost at a time where this economy is struggling to get back on its feet because of this guy and his policies. If, gentlemen, that the greenhouse gases is really an issue, and I think we could spend the rest of this show talking about whether it really is or not. If we're supposed to be having unending global warming, we've had 14 years of what they're now calling a pause in global warming. But let's assume, give the knotheads, the greenies on the left, the benefit of saying, okay, we believe that man-made greenhouse gas are a problem. You know that only 16% of the world's greenhouse gas are produced in this country, and that percentage goes down all the time.
Every year.
So even if we outlawed all fossil fuels generated in this country, and we're going back to the 1900s, guys, we're going to use horse and buggies, and it's going to be nothing else but solar and wind, and good luck to you, we wouldn't make a dent in this thing.
And if you really cared about coal emissions, you'd rather that coal be burned here in the U.S., where it's handled as cleanly as possible.
That's right.
Rather than exported to another country and
Exactly
burned
right, Steve.
where they don't care.
All right, headphones on. We've got a call from Tom. He wants to talk about the soldiers. Tom, you're live on KTIA. How you doing, Tom?
Great, Mac. Say, our brave young men that risked their lives to capture the guy who planned those 9/11 attack murders a couple years ago in Benghazi.
Yep.
What do you think the odds are that those brave, young, good soldiers are going to re-enlist now that we've traded that guy back to get a traitor?
Yeah, Tom, I think that's a major issue. What the president has never addressed is what this action does to endanger more U.S. soldiers. And that, to my way of thinking, being an ex-military person myself, that's really the heart of this. He has endangered every single person that puts on an American uniform and steps out of this country.
Tom, if you agree with Steve, tell me why you think that's correct.
Well, because you risk your life. I mean, you're in a war zone. You're concerned about getting killed any moment. You risk your life to go out and capture this guy. And yet he's given away along with 4 of his comrades who will no doubt try and kill you again once they're free. And you've gone through all this. Plus, I happen to know the guys that captured him. They brought him in, said, oh, everything went perfect, really smooth, couldn't believe it. Well, apparently, I think the guy probably did it himself, but his lip was bleeding. Well, they tried to court-martial the guys who captured him for blood on his lip. Said that shouldn't have happened. They think he was abused and all this, and they got cleared. Well, it'd be funny if it wasn't true. They got cleared, but the stress of waiting for your own court martial just because you did your job and did it well, and then to see that guy given back to the enemy so that he can try and kill you again, I would say, that'd be the last straw for just about anybody, patriotic or not.
Not only did we have men who were killed in the search for Bergdahl, but we had men who were killed in the process of capturing these Taliban that were then released.
Well, exactly right. Let me ask both you fellows your military background. What do you think the chances are that we will have any kind of court-martial proceedings against Bergdahl for at least walking off from his post voluntarily and perhaps aiding and abetting and consorting with the enemy to then in turn step up? And I understand the attacks on their base were significantly increased after his taking in by the Taliban. What are the chances we might get justice on him?
Tom, what do you think about that?
Well, I seriously doubt we'll get any justice because of the type of generals that get promoted under the Obama administration. They're the kind that have his political view that war is always bad and that, nobody should ever get hurt. And if we get hurt, well, we had it coming. I mean, this is the president that went around the world apologizing for America his first year as president. We should have known then that he didn't care about our side winning anything. He thinks we're the bad guys.
All right, Obama.
I like this guy. Maybe we can send him a phone. We need him
in
on
here too.
more often.
Yeah, Obama is invested in Bergdahl. That's why I believe the unlikelihood is that he and his administration, commanders-in-chief, will allow any proceedings to go forward no matter what kind of intel we have against Bergdahl.
Tom, I'm assuming that you served in our armed services. Tom, are you there? All right. Well, I want to thank Tom for serving. If he didn't serve, he's a patriot like Tom and I are. But I have a feeling that this caller that we just had serves. Our phone lines are open. If you're national, it's 1-855-244-0077. That number's stretched across the top of webcast1live.com. Or if you're local, it's just 515-244-0077. It's your voice we want to hear. Did the president screw up? Is this impeachment level screw up? Is it time to get rid of the president? By the way, he an advisor to him apologized today for breaking the law. We'll talk about that and more next on KTIA.
All across America, there are countless numbers of people struggling with addiction and other life-controlling issues. Probably someone you know and love. There is a way out. There is hope. Transformations Treatment Center in Delray Beach, Florida, has a unique approach to substance abuse treatment. Call now and ask about our Guaranteed Success program or log on to transformationstreatment.com. Transformations. Change your life. Change your relationships. Transform your world.
Get away from us, you mean old credit card. We don't have any more money. We're in trouble now. Save us! Help! Somebody save us! Somebody help! Help! Save us!
Hi, I'm Tom Coates from Consumer Credit of Des Moines. If your credit card's a little too animated, give us a call.
Hooray! We're saved! Consumer Credit, you're our hero!
Yes, now your favorite programs on Webcast One Live can all be watched and listened to on any Android or Apple device. Your phone, tablet, or iPad. Yes, your favorite shows on Webcast One Live are available live or on podcast wherever you go. Let me introduce to you some of our great shows.
Shalom! Every week on Understanding the World with Rabbi David Kaufman, we'll talk about issues in the Middle East, issues related to the Jewish tradition and religious traditions in general, and keep you up to date on exactly what's going on around the world. You may know some of the story, but you haven't heard all of the story until you've heard it on Understanding the World with Rabbi David Kaufman and our special guests we have on every week.
Hey, this is Doc with Doc and Lefty. I want to tell you about our brand new time slot. It's from 6:30 to 7:30 p.m. It's on the same night, Tuesdays. We now follow Ed Fallon and the Fallon Forum on webcast1live.com. I want to tell you a little bit about our show. Our show is focused on local, state, and national, and sometimes international politics. We like to keep people updated and informed. We also have very interesting guests. So please join us every Tuesday from 6:30 to 7:30 p.m. on webcast1live.com.
So when you want to watch your favorite Webcast One program, remember, there's an app for that. You know, there's an app for that.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
21 minutes after the hour on this third day of June. The reason we give you that date, we usually give you the date anyway, but everything we talk about today will change. In fact, it'll probably change before the 6 o'clock news tonight or the 10 o'clock news or the 9 a.m. news tomorrow. This world is changing fast. What are we talking about? Well, we're talking about the primary elections. We'll have that conversation a little later, but we're talking about this buffoon of a president. And I'm so embarrassed to say that because I feel real unpatriotic when I speak that way of the president. But he just proved to me, and I don't see a lot of people agreeing with him. I don't know if you noticed, Steve, on Facebook, I challenged my Democratic friends to come back and defend the president. Did you see how many did? I think we can count them on one finger. None.
That's right.
Yeah.
Michael Libby said something, and that was it.
Yeah. No, I don't.
Even his was a little half-hearted, I thought.
Yeah. I think you started to get him with the VA. I think the VA scandal crossed party lines, and I think his handling of that after 5 years of oversight made the Democrats and the people in the media run for cover. I think they were already on the defensive, and I don't think any of them wanted to defend him on this last one.
Well, let's go to the phones because Frank's standing by. We couldn't have a good show without the voice. Frank coming in here. Frank,
Hey, Frank.
knowing you the way I do, you probably okay with the president, what he just did, huh?
Tom, listen, Tom, you and Mac are both pretty sharp businessmen, and I'll leave it to you guys to fight it out which one's the best. But if you had stacks of $1 bills and you could get somebody to trade you equal stacks of $5 bills, I'll bet you both of you guys would take that all day long, wouldn't you?
Absolutely.
So, on the heels of the VA scandal, there's only two options here. They know that the American people are going to be outraged over this. So I want to be very clear here. There is only two options why Obama has done this. He is either the most inept, tone-deaf president that we have ever had, or he is the smartest guy in the room and knows exactly what he's doing. Now,
That's a very good point.
Now, I want you to think about that because I'm going to put this into context with something that happened in the Civil War that I read about. Part of the reason the Civil War was so prolonged was due to the fact that in the ranks of the military and the politicians, there was very many generals and politicians who were sympathetic to the slavery cause. Okay? And the point that I'm going to try to make here is at minimum, I don't know whether you want to call Obama treasonous, a traitor, what you want to call him, but at minimum to me, he is a terrorist sympathizer.
Well, that's obvious by doing what he did. I mean,
it's hard to imagine anyone making this trade who was not at least sympathetic to the cause of the Taliban and expressing a hatred for American military.
Well, let's look what he's not doing, guys. And Frank, he brags up and down, even to this day, about killing Osama bin Laden. And his vice president goes out and tells you what a brave guy that he is. But the Pakistani doctor that first put us on to where Osama bin Laden was arrested weeks after the killing and has been cooling his heels in a Pakistani prison ever since. And you think Obama would pick up a phone and do something to try to get him out of there? Instead, he's got this bearded boob and his wife in the Rose Garden yesterday bragging about getting their idiot AWOL deserting, perhaps, traitorous son out with a 5-to-1 trade.
A few more verbs. You got now, Frank. I want to ask you a question. Let's say you're right and he's number 2. He's the smartest guy in the room. What is Obama trying to accomplish by doing this?
Well, first off, we have to take his word that he's the smartest guy in the room because none of us have seen his college records. Yeah. But here's the point. Here's the other follow-up point I would like to make on this. This guy drones terrorists, supposedly. But we know for a fact that terrorists are willing to lose a few of their own for the cause. Okay?
Yeah.
That's a key point there because they will lose some of their own for a greater cause. So it wouldn't be a shock to me for Obama to kill a few terrorists, drop a few drone strikes on a few terrorists, but yet make national policy that actually encourages terrorism.
Well, you make a good point, Frank. It's hard for me to argue that, and since we don't know, your speculation's as valid as anybody's. We know that he's an internationalist at heart. We know that from his writings and some of the things he said. Whether we can take it as far as you take it, I don't know. I'd like not to think that my president, even though it's not of my choosing, wouldn't go that far, but I think that's reasonable speculation.
Frank, thanks a lot for the call. We appreciate it. Steve Riker, a 6-year Army vet, a medic in the Army, is my special guest along with Tom Coates today. Here's the latest coming from Breitbart.com, big government. A top aide to President Obama is now apologizing to Congress for not informing lawmakers, as required by law, that the White House was planning to trade an alleged deserter for 5 top Taliban commanders. Now, if you haven't heard about this yet, the President of the United States is required by law to tell Congress 30 days prior to doing any trade for POWs.
Right. We have a system in place for how to handle this.
Right.
And Obama, because he has a pen and a cell phone, decided not to do
Well,
that.
that's true, Steve. But, you know, the narrative initially...
That's right.
The narrative initially was that this guy's health was in such perilous straits that they had to make the trade right now, and they didn't have time to consult Congress. I think that's a very specious excuse that doesn't hold much water.
Well, you know what it sounds like? It sounds like their same excuse with Benghazi. We just didn't think it out, so we're going to put some stupid... Oh, it was a video. It was a video. It was a terrorist video. And now they're going to come back, and this guy... Yeah, I think this kid is mentally off, but he's not dying.
But I don't think it's something that he snapped in combat, Mac. No. Again, what I see is somebody that premeditated, as Steve laid out, the steps that he was going to take to join up. It looks to me like he intended to join up with the opposition.
For months and months.
And so that's why he was studying the language. That's why he sent his stuff home.
Isn't that treason?
I think it is.
Isn't that... I mean... And then you talked about the fact that base that he left was getting attacked brutally after this guy went AWOL. And you know why? Because he went home and told them all,
well, let's look
here's
at
what the base is. Here's
a clear conflict.
This and that and that and that.
If you had a U.S. serviceman that was studying Japanese or German during World War II and then just one day walked off, with under these circumstances, joined up with the opposition, increased the attacks of the base, and then we eventually got him back. Don't you think at that point he would have been tried as a traitor?
I often think about that. My great uncle fought in World War II, and I often think about him and how he would respond if I could walk up to him and say, "Wally, we decided that we're going to trade 5 terrorists for a deserter. What do you think of that?"
Well, and let's talk about the thing with the Hanoi Jane just popped up recently, Jane Fonda. The Vietnam vets, especially a friend of mine was a POW 5 years in the Hanoi Hilton. They still have visceral dislike for this woman that would come over, give aid and comfort for PR purposes to the enemy. It would step up the torture to force them to come in front of the cameras and give her the backdrop that she needed. They'll never forget that. And she was viewed as a traitor, but not to the point perhaps that this guy did, because he wore the uniform. She never wore the uniform.
That's right.
She never took an oath. This guy did. And I think unless it be proven that he was absolutely mentally deranged, he ought to be held accountable. And
I agree. I don't think it's ever going to happen.
Well, and one of, I don't, or at least not right now. I think the precedent, guys, we haven't talked about the precedent that this sets. Okay. Always before we said we would not negotiate with terrorists, right?
Right. First time this has ever happened.
And while Biden gave some lip service, we didn't negotiate with terrorists. I don't know what else you call it when you negotiate this 5-1 bad deal. Now, what's going to happen the next time these terrorists have an opportunity to take an American?
You bet.
Civilian, military, or otherwise. Because now the precedent's been set. Well, we can swap for some of our bad guys that they caught, and so we're put bounties out on Americans because we can get something for these guys.
That's right. This has made military service outside the U.S. borders infinitely more dangerous, and the only type of person that would have created a situation like this is someone who hated our military personnel, which is a claim I've made about President Obama more than once. And I think this proves it.
Well, and here's the tragic thing. Let's change the narrative for just a minute. This poor boy who was captured by the Taliban, kept prisoner for 5 years. Finally, because of whatever reason, the Taliban agreed to release him if we exchanged him for 5 bad guys. Does that really give you enough sympathy to let the president off on what he did? No, it doesn't. Add to this now, he's a deserter. He did this on purpose. It was premeditated.
That's right. I said I would have a problem with this if it was for a Navy SEAL, if it was for one of our best soldiers.
Let me tell you about let me tell you about the 5 guys we let go. Just so there's no there's no argument about it. And I can't pronounce their names. I apologize, and I don't want to be rude and butcher them. So, prisoner number 1, wanted by the United Nations for war crimes, including the slaughter of thousands of Muslims. Former top commander in Al-Qaeda's military. That's number 1. Number 2, a top Taliban military commander who is also wanted by the UN for war crimes. Number 3, helped coordinated alliances with Islamics to fight alongside the Taliban against the United States, killing American blood, killing boys and girls from America in Afghanistan. Number 4 is the former governor of a key province in Afghanistan who carried out important missions for the infamous, again, a name I don't pronounce, the spiritual head of the Taliban. Also, he was a drug dealer suspected of personally overseeing Osama bin Laden's training facilities. And number 5, a senior Taliban military officer with ties to multiple terrorist organizations.
You know,
if we were reading history, this guy, Arnold, who's the big...
Benedict Arnold?
This is Benedict Arnold. President Obama is Benedict Arnold.
Well, this is even much more clear than Benedict Arnold, where many of the people that lived in the colonies at that point had loyal feelings to the crown. I think the lines were much more blurred during those Revolutionary War days. I think what we're talking about is far worse than a Benedict Arnold in my mind.
I would like to talk. I'd like to privately poll every single congressperson and say, why would you not vote to at least censure?
Sure.
If not, what's the word I want?
Impeach.
Impeach. He just superseded. He just superseded.
Yeah.
You're not important, Congressman. We don't need you anymore. I can do whatever I want without
Steve
you.
said it earlier.
Here's the difference between liberals and conservatives, if you really want to get down to it. The closest we've ever come to this in the past is probably the Iran-Contra affair, where Reagan traded or in essence traded arms for hostages. So we have a slight precedent for this. But the difference is this. When Reagan went on TV and he said, yeah, I had a small part in that, he suffered the largest single-week drop in a presidential approval rating ever. Not one Democrat, not one major Democrat has come out and spoken against this action taken by President Obama.
The times, they are changing, and it's not a good thing. 25 minutes before the top, we'll be back. Steve Riker, 6-year military medic, and Tom Coates in the house. I'm J. Michael McCoy. Thanks for listening. I love this job, even on days like this, and I couldn't do it without you. Here on KTIA, Iowa.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
I'm Brian Leach, owner and general manager of Service Legends. I brought along a couple of the home comfort heroes.
Hi, I'm Tammy Wells.
I am Nick Wondershad.
I'm administrative manager.
I am the senior technician
from Service Legends.
It seems like every good thing, when you feel it to the bone that it's good, there's a lot of hard work put behind it. I don't think that you can fake it and have it turn out good.
You know, if we seemed like, okay, that's just weird, it's just a furnace, why would you believe so deeply in a furnace? It's not just that, you know, we want to show the world that you can have good service.
Yeah, I mean, it's your home.
You know, it's built into our daily trainings, it's built into our culture, that we're gonna do whatever it takes to have each client say they love us, period.
That's why we spend all the hours in the training that we do. And if we guarantee it's gonna be a good experience for you, or else it's free, what type of work do you think we're gonna do?
There is a guarantee.
Temperature selection guarantee, fixed right or it's free guarantee, comfort guarantee, best value guarantee. All of these guarantees hold us accountable to ensuring that we exceed your expectations. And if for whatever reason we'd fail and we can't make it right, we guarantee all of those guarantees with a 100% money back guarantee.
I mean, if you don't think that your technician can fix it right, are you gonna say that to a client? No.
You don't have to worry about having a technician come to your house.
We drug test, background check all of our team members. We put safe people in your home. Each and every one of our service techs, 400 hours a year in training.
You tell it the minute they walk in the door. They know what they're doing, they've done their homework, and they actually truly care about what you want.
Because at the end of the day, you're the person that makes sure I have a job.
They're gonna be listening. They're gonna wanna know what your challenges are. Then they're gonna come and give you options, and you get to choose.
If I'm there to help and I make it easy and painless, I did my job right that day.
Well, when it comes to your comfort, safety, and your family, you know, you don't necessarily go buy the most expensive, but you get the most bang for your buck.
Oh, it's worth it, because there's a lot of people that will find a way to get it to work right now and then leave, and then come back, charge you again, and the cycle just repeats itself. So when I'm out there looking at the furnace, I want to find why it failed today. How can we change the part today with something that you're not going to have to worry about? Is it worth changing the part today? I mean, you can put a lot of money into a furnace. I can fix parts all day. There's good job security in that for me, but is it the right thing for you?
I get a lot of the phone calls of after the technicians are there. They're just in awe. They're like, wow, you guys are great. I mean, I don't even know what to say. You guys are great. Everything you did was perfect. It was great.
Keep going though, I like this.
Just give us a try. I'm gonna take all the risk.
I've got the time to make this right. I've got the support to make it right.
Just check us out.
And if you don't see the value in what we do,
I mean, fixed right or it's free or 100% money back.
enough said.
All right, 22 before the top. Salem Radio Network News will update us, and then Michael Mudloff will be in with True Blue. Let's go to the phones where my buddy and brother in Jesus, Army Brad, is standing by. And, of course, Brad's going to correct us if we got anything wrong. So, Brad, go ahead and take us to the woodshed
well, Brad,
here.
This is a record. I think we've never had 3 phone calls in the same show before, so congratulations for that.
Well, here's my take on it, and I think we need to slow down on the PFC, now Sergeant First or Staff Sergeant, until the investigation is complete, because there's a lot of unknowns still, and of course everything's years old as far as any investigation that's going to take place.
Mm-hmm.
I know from the military forums we're all kind of mystified on how this soldier is worth 5 hardcore terrorists, but I think there is some precedent with Israeli soldiers being traded for combatants from the other side. But
Are you aware of any
Israel has
precedent that we've set like this, Brad, where we've made a swap like this in recent times?
We've never done anything like this.
We've never done.
What do you think about the precedent that it's setting, Brad?
I know that if I was in that situation and the thing that surprises me most about his situation is that he wasn't executed right from the start, because that's normally what happens to anybody that is taken. If you watch like the history, I mean, how many U.S. prisoners have been kept by the Taliban for any period of time? The fact that it was even kept is the strangest thing to me. But
that's right. And what purpose would they have for keeping a low-ranking soldier like this?
So you would speculate then also, Brad, that he perhaps wasn't a prisoner, that he voluntarily walked in and in essence enlisted.
I'm not going to say any of that, because there's a whole lot of investigations need.
I understand. Do you think we can get an honest investigation, Brad?
I think the military, it'll be handled by the military, and I think politics will hopefully stay out of it as much as possible.
Oh, come on, Brad. I mean, the commander-in-chief who's already taken the military guys out that didn't want to kowtow to his own agenda, which included mainstreaming homosexuality within the military, is going to allow them an objective investigation of this guy when he would be further embarrassed by anything bad that comes out? Come on.
Well, it's going to be done by the military.
Brad, I just said he's already set up. He's already set up the people. Anybody that doesn't want to kowtow to his agenda has been put out already.
Well, there's plenty of us that know what our duty is first and foremost. And
I'm talking about bureaucrats that, in essence, are masquerading as generals that are doing what he wants them to do.
You know, Brad did say one thing that I really agree with, and here's Brad. Here's where you and I think see this similarly. I don't think that PFC Bergdahl is the important part of this story. I think we have low-level treasonous soldiers all the time. He didn't know anything special. He didn't tilt the balance of the war. My anger in this story isn't really directed at him. My anger in this is directed at a president who took actions that are bad for America.
I don't disagree with that, but if you were one of the parents of those 6 guys that lost their lives out searching for this guy, you might hold it against him a little bit, not only the president, but also this Bergdahl.
Sure.
All right, so you're listening to this. By the way, your voice is always welcome. 1-855-244-0077. Steve Riker is here along with Tom Coates. Ryan's producing, and I'm J. Michael McCoy. Today, what a day for this to happen, because today's a day that we can't, you can vent on the phone, you can vent on Facebook or on email or Twitter, you can vent by calling us and being on the radio, but what you can really do is vote. Today, if you're a Democrat, go out and vote Republican. Change your party today and vote the Republicans in. Change your affiliation with this president who has just committed treason, who has absolutely broken the law of Congress, and you add up everything else he's done. The only reason the man's not going to be impeached is Joe Biden. I'm serious. I mean, if I'm a senator, the last thing I want to do is put Joe Biden as president.
The greatest life insurance policy any president's ever had.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, if they went for impeachment, which they would if it were Republican, if the cases were turned and we had all this on a Republican, there would be impeachment movement. The media is on his side and his color is on his side, and so we're not going to see any impeachment boom. He could come out and you could catch him red-handed passing off weapons of mass destruction to guys like he just released, and we still wouldn't see an impeachment on him.
All right, what about this? Two of these guys. Well, go ahead. You were going to say something.
Well, I was just going to say about Joe Biden. Our friend Jan Mickelson posted something that made me laugh today. He said, "A nation can survive its fools and even the ambitious, but it cannot survive treason from within."
Absolutely.
That right there seems like an argument for Joe Biden as president.
Yeah. Now, let's look at this angle. I just gave you the short resume of these 5 guys that he let go. 2 of them were wanted by the United Nations for war crimes.
Right.
Now, if I'm the United Nations, don't I have some recourse against the United States or the president for releasing someone that they had wanted and we released them?
Exactly right. Where do we come up? I mean, if Obama's an internationalist, where do we come up with the authority to release somebody that is on the wanted list for the United Nations, an international war criminal? I bet you make a good point there, Mac.
I don't know how we do that and stay in the good graces of the United Nations.
If you want to see this change, if you want to see this president stop taking extra powers and assuming them through the stroke of a pen, you have to change the balance in the Senate.
Yeah.
And today is the day that we do that. Today is the day that Iowa voters can help to do that.
Amen. And this is a key race, isn't it, guys?
Yeah.
This is a huge race.
If you don't want to do anything about it today, or you don't want to react today by going to the poll and changing from Democrat to Republican, maybe that's just too unsettling for you. I understand that. You've got 5 months until the regular election. Let's play this out. Forget about Bruce Bailey. Forget about Joni Ernst. Forget about whoever's going to be on the Republican side. Let's just say that this thing is the real deal, that we find out this is a deserter. He helped the Taliban. The 5 guys let go have already gotten back in and responsible for killing American people. There's no way in heaven's name you can vote for another Democrat.
How could you?
I don't know. How could you? Tell me. Somebody call me and tell me. I don't have a Democrat that listens to me, I'm sure. But if you do, I want to know. I won't give you a hard time. I won't call you names. Help me understand. Talk to me like I'm a 6-year-old. How in the heck could you ever vote for the Democratic Party again when the leader of the Democratic Party just committed treason against the United States of America and broke the law?
At the very least, until you get new leadership. I mean, you're making an excellent point again. I mean, it is defined by the leadership at the top. And just like on some of the things like the Keystone Pipeline and Obamacare and these other things that the Democrats are trying to hide and distance themselves from Obama, here is another thing. The VA that they decried. Now we've got this swap. You've got to define yourself by the top leadership. And whether we would have had a McCain or a Romney, they would have defined who the Republican Party was for good or ill. Obama's defined the Democratic Party for what it is, and it isn't good. It isn't good, guys.
And not one single leading Democrat has stepped out and said they thought this was a bad idea.
Why is that? What are they so afraid of?
Well, I think they're also not coming out and saying this is a good idea either. I think they're probably frozen in place. Here is another scandal I've got to have to deal with. Where can I go and hide on this one, Steve?
It's the closest an American Democrat comes to standing up for the truth is shutting up.
Yeah.
How outrageous is that?
I'm
Well, right. On the pipeline, 11 Democrats in the U.S. Senate who are fearing for their jobs have come out and petitioned Obama to run the pipeline.
Yep.
But they had a billionaire from the West Coast that said, I won't give $100 million to these races if you run that Keystone pipeline. Now, if that shoe was on the other foot, I would say 90% of the Americans don't know what I just said. If a Republican was kowtowing like that to the Koch brothers, you would see as a front page news item.
Yes, you would.
Who do you want to win the election? Primaries today. We'll talk about that when we come back with Steve Riker and Tom Coates and Mac and Ryan and you here live on KTIA, Iowa.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Hey, psst. Let me let you in on a little secret. You ready? Always try to do business with people, not places. Especially if you seek honest Christian business people. And when it comes to my car, I really need to trust who's working on it. Now, my family is so blessed. A few years ago, we found a family-owned automobile repair shop that operates as a Christian business also. Open, honest, reliable, trustworthy. It's AMCO on Hickman Road in front of Kmart. And it's a family-owned Christian operating business. This family treats your car as if it was their car. Everything from oil changes to transmission repair and everything in between. So the next time you feel the need to be at peace with your choice of who you can trust with your car, give AMCO on Hickman a chance to serve you. And tell them Max sent you.
Hey, what's wrong? Logan wants Let's Rock Elmo for his birthday, but since Steve lost his job, I don't think we can afford it. What did you do for money last year when you and John were struggling to make ends meet?
My secret? I went to Me and Mommy to Be. We sold all of Megan and Ryan's clothes and toys there. They give back the highest percentage on their items in the area, and it was so easy.
Megan's clothes? She's 15.
Yes, they can sign newborn through trendy teens. We're not struggling now, but I'm gonna keep saving and making money at Me and Mommy to Be.
10 minutes before the top on this last segment here of Primary Election Day 2014. I'm J. Michael McCoy, and join Right Places tomorrow and Thursday as we take a switch from politics and talking about recovery, and he'll be in with gospel music. And then on Friday, The View from a Pew, and a wonderful guest, as always, for that afternoon. We're going to have, and I'm stalling. See, here I'm doing this, I'm stalling. We're going to have, Pastor Ben Mason. From Lutheran Church of Hope. Great guy. Going to go through some of the questions on Ask the Pastor. That'll be Friday here on The View from a Pew. Steve Riker's here, 6-year military man, medic in the United States Army. Tom Coates, who probably should have been drafted into Vietnam, but...
Could have been.
Could have been, but you didn't.
70, when I graduated in 72, they still had the draft and had it for 2 more years, but I had a rather high draft number. It was 238 or something like that, and at that point you would have had to been in the single digits almost to get drafted.
But you would have gone.
Well, sure.
If you had been called, sure. Yeah, there's no Canadian blood in you.
That's right.
Today's primary day, and you've got a lot of races across the land. 2 that are being looked at real closely here is the seat for Tom Harkin's seat, and the election for Tom Latham's seat.
Yes.
Steve, let's start with you. Who do you like in those elections? And you don't have to. You don't have to expose anything you don't want to.
Oh, well, I'm pretty open. Anybody who's been a part of my social media world is pretty aware of who I'm voting for. I really like Sam Clovis. He's probably the person I've campaigned for the most out of this. I like Whitaker. You and I talked about Whitaker. I think he's a good, solid conservative. I don't think that he has the depth that Clovis has yet. But Sam Clovis has got 25 years on Matt Whitaker as well.
Yeah.
So that's who I've really pushed for.
On the Senate.
Yep.
How about the House?
It's
a tougher call?
Yeah, that is a tough call.
Well, give us your top 2 or 3 then.
What about you?
No, we'll go with you first. So who do you like on the House side?
No, you go first. No, you go first.
Well, okay, I'll tell you.
Tom before R.
Okay. Well, I'll follow up with what you said on the Senate. We've had Sam on here a few times. We've had Matt on a few times.
Yep.
We had Mark Jacobs once. We never could get Joni. Maybe we will and I think the likelihood is, Steve, that just like everybody's saying, Joni probably pulls this off and may do it without having to go to convention. If it does go to convention, I still think she'll pull it off.
I do too.
I think that deck's been stacked. I disagree on if you're talking about intellectual depth. I think Sam and Matt Whitaker are very closely aligned in regards to depth of intellect. Understanding of policy. Sure, Sam understands some areas of military and economics a little bit better. I mean, he's got his doctorate in economics. He served in the military and in intelligence. There are other things that Matt is a little bit better informed on. Both of them, unfortunately, gentlemen, are splitting some of that same vote. The ones that appreciate what I just said.
They are.
It would be far better if one of them wasn't in the race. They're splitting some of those votes. Matt shows a little ahead in the polls, but they could combine the two and couldn't still quite get up to where Joni is. Jacobs has done himself a disservice by the attacks on Ernst. He is a moderate in temperament. He, in fact, when in the debates the other night, he said, who do you admire? He finally sputtered out Bob Ray. Well, that I think said it. Bob Ray, fine gentleman. Knew Bob years ago fairly well. My dad went to law school with him. He's a fine man, but a very much a moderate to liberal Republican. And to say that he favors him, I think said it. Now, let's move to the House side.
Well, and I want to add one thing. He stuttered to find that.
Yes, he did.
If you ask me who I admire, I've got it off the top of my head.
Yeah.
But this guy, he wiggled around till he found something that was politically correct.
Yeah, now the question is, will he stay in Iowa? Will he move back to Texas, Florida, or the Bahamas somewhere? I don't know.
He'll move.
Yeah, I think so.
I'll bet you steak dinner at Bonanza.
I wouldn't bet on it.
Okay.
Now let's move to the House race. A muddy field there. A lot of good people.
Yep.
Monty Shaw I met with early before he declared and laid out his plan. And it was a good plan. Raise a few $100,000, stake out the more conservative to moderate ground while everybody else fought for the right. And he's doing that. Don't think it's going to be enough to get it. I think Matt Schultz has fallen off a little bit. David Young, met with him, had a cigar with him at the club, a nice fella. I don't think he's quite ready for it yet. Robert Kramer put his own money into it, had some other conservative Christian money put into it. Don't think he's never run for office. I don't think he's quite ready for prime time either. I think I come around, even though he's maybe been the fourth, only the number 4 as far as raising of money is Brad Zahn. We had Brad in here last week, Steve, sitting in your chair.
Yep.
I've always liked Brad. He's a man of principle. He stood up when nobody else would. As the mayor of Urbandale, went in front of the cameras opposing the slot machines at Prairie Meadows.
Yep.
He has not been able to raise money in part because he will not kowtow to some of these special interests. He's put his money into yard signs. We talked to him about his convention strategy because that one very well may go to convention. He said, I've spoken to all the 460 delegates after they were appointed. So he's met with people. He's got the ground game. I think Brad Zahn comes out on top on that one, and I've got a dollar bet with a good Democrat friend of mine who I just found out today flipped his registration a few years back. He said, I was so much against Culver getting reelected. He said, I've registered as a Republican and voting for Branstad. So I was shocked at that. But those are my predictions. Joni Ernst probably without a convention. Brad Zahn likely with a convention.
Yeah, I think I'd like to see Brad Zahn do well. I think he is probably the most principled conservative that we see out of that field. Although that's not a bad field. No. There are some adequate choices there that I think would be worthwhile.
Yeah, I've been a friend of Brad's for a long, long time. And as you faced many years ago, Chet Culver is a friend of mine, and I voted for him. And so I'm probably not the smartest guy in the room when it comes to voting. But here's the thing about Brad Zahn. Brad Zahn has never changed. He has never become he's been a legislator, he's been a mayor, he's run for Senate, now he's running for Congress. Brad Zahn will not be changed by Washington. And so if you haven't voted yet, pray about it. Ask what God's will is for you to vote for, who it is that he wants in that office, and then be a good servant and follow him. But I cast my vote today. I did it for Brad Zahn. I did it for Matt Whitaker. I voted again for Branstad. And on city attorney or state attorney, I don't remember, it was empty. I wrote me. I wrote me in. You never know.
That's a brilliant campaign strategy.
Thank you very much.
I'll write you too.
So, Steve, thanks for being here today.
Thank you, Mac.
Pleasure to have
Thank
you.
you, Tom.
I hope you join us
again.
It. And Tom, thanks for being here. And we'll look forward to next Tuesday with Tom Coates here on Mac's World. And Ryan, thanks for producing. I appreciate everybody listening today. I appreciate the phone calls, Tom and Frank and Brad. And I'm always interested in your input. You can go to my website, MacMcCoy, MacMcKoy.com. Oh, you find me. You know how to find me. You can stop at my house, knock on the door, and tell me what you think. But until we meet again, do me one favor, would you? Think of somebody you don't like. Think of somebody that makes you real mad and you have a resentment against. And tonight, when you say your prayers, forgive them.